Hello, I'm David Eicholtz with David Richard Gallery here in New York City, and I'm standing here today. It's a real pleasure with Sandra Gering, who just came in from California this month and is going to be here for a while visiting. Used to have a gallery here in New York City for many, many years, and was actually next to her is John Simon, and this is the show we're standing in, but she represented John for about the past 26 years. So this is a great opportunity with Sandra being here, and John's new show, Drawing Air, is up at the gallery. We just finished installing it yesterday, so we thought this would be a great opportunity for Sandra to see it, and also just to have a little bit of a chat. The work in this exhibition, there are lots of videos and other documentation on the website, and you'll hear and see more from me from email and things, but it's largely, well, it's an ongoing and a continuum of work that John has done over, gosh, the last 3 decades or so of his life, which is a daily practice of meditation and drawing. And so these have all come out of that. And it's been a very interesting evolution in terms of the drawings, and that's what would be great to hear from Sandra, as she's been very familiar with John's work for the last 2.5 decades. And she's been able to see this show. But in terms of my limited working with John, got pretty immersed into his work and his practice. This show is a continuum, though, of a pretty distinct body of work that emerged in 2010 called the Innerhole series, and it sort of has progressed over the last decade. And this show really represents a big breakthrough, I think, for John in terms of his meditative practice. And we'll talk more about this in other videos that we have. What I really want to do, though, is have Sandra and John have a little bit of an exchange about how they met, some of their first shows, because it was very rooted in the digital realm and still drawing based all along. And so that was, I think, it'd be kind of fun to do while we have Sandra here. So take it away, guys and gals.
Well, first of all, I want to say how honored I am that you allowed me to come during installation, and that John wanted me here means so much to me. I have to say that I love John, and I love artists very much, and since the closing of my gallery, I miss him. So this is a really nice experience, and I am so happy that you've allowed me to do this, David.
Well, my pleasure. Well, I've always admired you. In fact, we met a number of times, even before we started talking about John and other aspects of digital work, which you've really specialized in. So we've known each other, and on and off over the years. So no, it's a real pleasure, and I'm thrilled that John approached us about representing him. So it's an honor for me.
It's wonderful. But I would say that I was extremely drawn to John's work. He might say differently, but I was extremely drawn to it, and drawn to technology and the mathematics of it. And he really, I feel, very strongly was the beginning of a tech movement that started in, I would say, the mid-90s.
In 98, 99?
Yeah.
When those objects started to appear.
Yeah.
But Sandra introduced me. I was in a much more conceptual space, and I wanted to work in the galleries, and Sandra introduced me to what that meant, and to the seductive object.
Yeah.
and the use of materials, which she always emphasized, the use of especially new materials and color and that sort of thing, and she got me thinking about it in the right way. And I was able to put together in that time period, the sort of a synthesis of the technology and the materials into the plastic, and that's how the first screens were born. So she was a big contributor to how that was conceived.
I always knew that a piece was touching my soul when I would stand in front of a new piece and tears would come down my face. And John can attest to that. Every time he would make a new screen, he would call me to come over, and I would stand and cry. And that's how I knew that I would be able to sell it.
That was a good one.
Exactly. I'll never forget Complex City. I mean, I couldn't leave the studio. It was just...
mesmerizing piece.
Yeah, really. And what year was that, John?
2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago. Yeah, I started out this year to try to make a 20-year look back at the piece.
Yes.
But it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It was too... I've moved out of the city. It was hard to write about the city.
That's right.
The city's changed so much in 20 years, got more homogenous, and...
But the river is still there.
Yeah, the software changed. So I had a crack at it, and then when coronavirus happened, I got shut down, and the show got postponed. Then I had a big chunk of time, and that's how this drawing air software came out.
Yeah.
It was more an evolution of where I had to work from where I was and who I was at the moment. It was the looking back wasn't working. So
But I do think the new digital piece does, as Sandra and I were talking about earlier, is it punctuates not only your career, and it was good that it came to you sort of out of inspiration.
Yeah.
And because I kept asking him, so how's the new digital piece going? How's the new digital piece going?
Yeah.
And he's like,
It's
kind of not into it yet, not into it yet. And then he got so excited about it when I went up. When was that? When I got
August.
back, I guess, in July or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, but it punctuated his career. But it really tied this exhibition together, because John and I talk about this separately, but there's really two kind of spheres going on in here, but it's sort of the connection, and I think it's actually the connection, as I said, punctuating his career, sort of like what's next, which is fun about it. But that's how these things happen, there was no planning that, and so
what's great for me to have you here was that in 2010, when you were on 57th Street and we did Innerhole, and that was the first show with all the robotic carving, really, and just straight visual pieces and no screens, and that work, that was a breakthrough work in terms of my meditation practice and visualization of no self and that sort of thing. And that it took me really a long time to integrate what that show is about and understand it.
Yes.
And this show is the next one, I'd say, if that was a series from Innerhole to this show. And these are the same sort of cycles opened up. So it's great that you get to see that.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing.
Transition of the work, of the idea from 10 years ago. Continues to grow and expand and be meaningful to me and in my practice.
You've grown up. In a very beautiful way, might I say. I actually love the markings on this piece very much.
The improv piece.
Yeah,
that's a very free one, right? Those markings, right? They're reference to you remember those early drawing tools and pen drawing that you saw? So
that's why.
It's very funny that I turned to computer drawing to get away from what I thought was the tedium of drawing by hand and to automate the tools. And because that was in the days of, it was 93, even before that, 89, I was doing drawing tools. And I thought we're going to reinvent drawing with computer drawing. And I made all these ways to automate mark making. And what I got were these particular shapes, which became the marks
from here.
That go onto the piece. So they're going into the computer and trying to redo drawing brought it all back to the surface, and that became a kind of a signature style instead of something that was universal.
I very much like the void in that piece.
Oh yeah.
Very
That's so there was Innerhole, but all of the ones in Innerhole, they were connected, so it was just a hole. But here it's open.
Yes.
And so they make more interesting shapes. And so not only did they open, but they kind of broke apart.
Yes.
In different ways.
And this one's really open and approaching kind of almost sort of a stack.
Yeah, this one is like, when you're open to the universe, right?
Yes.
Innerhole was here, and I was introspective, and I was figuring out what that was inside ourselves. That's, special. That was this inner hole, this part that's kind of infinite within us. And then this one is where it's also all around us.
Yeah.
It's also everywhere. So
but it's kind of a bridge then to like this piece, which are linear stacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are really interesting.
Yes.
And
fragmented.
Yeah.
Right?
Very fragmented, but yet the power is, I don't know if in the
the
video
negative,
for catching it,
space.
but the river.
Yeah.
So the river is such an ongoing theme throughout John's whole career.
Constant.
It's really fascinating.
All of the Innerhole
Yeah.
pieces had rivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the breakthrough of the Innerhole pieces was the shapes of the negative spaces. So
Yeah.
and that's still a big play. That's still what's happening.
Yeah, the voids are powerful, and I'm always drawn to the voids. And
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why. Part of what I think it is that now that and as I understand more about his practice, there's a significance there. But I think as a viewer, and maybe somebody who doesn't understand, meditation, much about meditation or the practice, it's still something that people can aesthetically engage with, because you always kind of wonder what's missing, and then you fill it in. So they almost become more interactive. The more a void there is, they become more interactive with a viewer who's coming upon them very naively and new, and doesn't know the history, of them. Mm-hmm. And so it allows people to engage with it more and kind of create their own narrative. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for you.
No. I think the fact is that the drawings that these are all based on are improvisational drawings. So when I sit down every day to draw on the cards, I don't know what's going to come up. And I think having them arise and build spontaneously from this improvisational practice leaves the meaning of open-ended. I don't sit down and say, I'm going to draw a car, I'm going to draw a house. I say, what's going to appear? And when it appears, then I try to read it and understand it, as I expect anybody who comes to the work to do for themselves. So yeah, it leaves the meaning completely open-ended, and I think it's great to tell your own story about it and come up with your own.
Well, in many ways, now that I think about it, actually, hearing you sort of say that, you're right. It's having it be so open-ended that somebody can interpret is the best thing, because it actually gets to the whole aspect of the selflessness. You've broken up the narrative. You're not letting your narrative or your sort of biases come forward.
Yeah. The void, I think, personally, is the place of creation. Mm-hmm. And that's where it begins. And then you work around that void. And I think in this exhibition, John has done that so beautifully. And when you speak about, Duchamp was the one who first said that. An artwork is never complete until the viewer views it. Yep. So what art is, to me, is a communication between two souls. You would interpret the void in a different way. I interpret it in a different way, and John does. But we communicate in a very our own unique creative ways. So that's how I see it. And I think that this work, after having shown the seminal work from this series, this really is, I feel, extremely strong. And so happy about it.
Well, it's just great. Yeah. It's great to have you here to see the growth and be able to
wonderful.
discuss the transitions and all, and to see it. Yeah, and thanks to David for having the space and being able to present it.
Yeah,
it's been my pleasure. Trust me.
Really thrilled. I mean, I consider my artists, my
family.
Children, and I'm just so happy to see this. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. Yeah, and I wish you the best of luck. Of course, I will support the work till my last breath, for sure.
Well, it's my pleasure working with John. He's wonderful to work with. He's brilliant, talented, smart, sensitive. So it's all the right combination of things. So it makes my job easier and inspiring. I really enjoyed writing about the work a lot, and I really have dove into it, and so I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it's nice to work with geniuses.
I say the same thing.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And everybody, come see the show yourself.